Wil Anderson, thank you for joining MolksTVTalk.
My pleasure, thank you.
You're fresh back off the plane, you smell like Qantas. How's your time been in LA?
Yeah, you knew I flew our national airline, I appreciate that. You went, he's a guy who likes the pyjamas with the flying kangaroo on them.
Get as much out of the flight as you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Lessons to live by.
No, yeah, exactly. No, I do fly Qantas because they're very nice people and they always tend to knock me up at least, one section of the plane from where I am, which I very much appreciate on those long flights. And I did some shows in London one year, about, I guess, 3 Christmases ago or something like that. And so it was a Christmas season of shows in London, snow and the tube, but these beautiful, shows at this theatre in London for 2 weeks. And one night, all the Qantas staff came and saw the show, right? Which is brilliant, very supportive of Aussies overseas. We had a great night, and they are great audience members because, if they've got a night off in a city, they love to have a drink, to go out, have some fun, Anyway, afterwards, one of the girls who was with the crew has left me her number. Now, I have a policy, no matter how nice the person might be, I would never call someone who I met at one of my shows, because that is the most interesting I am for an entire year. Basically, if you went out with me after one of my shows, basically you're signing up to nothing but disappointment, longing for another hour like that. That is the most interesting and funny things I have to say and have thought of in an entire year.
That's awesome.
The rest of the time I'm like, oh, do you reckon the Bulldogs will win on the weekend? Let's watch Top Chef. That is... Honey, you're never going to believe it. The cast of Lost were on Top Chef Masters. Oh, it was brilliant.
Is that all you have, Will?
Yeah, that's it. See me next year at the show. So, anyway, I didn't call, and it had nothing to do with the poor girl. It was just, it's a policy of mine, saving her from disappointment. But the next, I've flown home on Christmas Eve because I wanted to get home for Christmas Day. And no one flies on Christmas Eve. So, because all the crew who'd been on the plane had seen me, and they said, do you want to sit in first class? And I've never sat in first class before, and I was like, well, of course, I'd love to sit in first class. And there's normally maybe about, I guess, 12 or 14 seats or something. It's quite small. There's only me and another lady in first class, and there's like 3 people looking after us, and I was loving it, right? I was just thinking, I'm taking full advantage of this. They're like, you want more champagne? Yes, I want more champagne. Leave the bottle and a straw, But halfway through this flight, they've
shift change.
Come up to me and said, there's someone who'd like to meet you. And it was the girl who had left me the number. And she's gone, so, you didn't call? And that was the most awkward moment because you can't excuse yourself. Like, I'm just there. I can't go, I've got to go for a walk. I've got to go. You're trapped on a plane. And I am in first class, so there's not even other people around. So, anyway, I did just, come back from LA on Qantas, who I love. Thank you, Qantas.
How was your time? Because it's only a short time, 4 months.
Yeah.
But it was a very intentional time for you to go and have a swing on the circuit over there,
Yeah, and I mean, I've been doing it in dribs and drabs. Basically, I tried to work it out the other day, I think about 7 of the last 12 or 13 months I've actually been overseas. But essentially what I do is I come back and I do some touring or I do some TV, and then I take whatever time I have in between. And if I've only got a short time, I might go to New Zealand. If I have a bit longer, I might, go to some places that are a bit sort of, further reaching than that. So this was my first time to have 4 months where I could really try to build some momentum, and it does take that. Because like comedy is very similar in the States as it is here. It's hard to get spots at the start, but if you go somewhere and you're good, people are very happy to then suddenly put you on all the time. So you've got to do that first bit, which is the bit where you're, this was like, my mates thought I was crazy. Like some nights I would be driving 2 hours, like both ways, 2 hours, to go and do a 7-minute open spot for no money, in some room. And they're like, what are you doing? But I said, you do that. And I'd go down, and that would be my one gig I had that, like, for 2 weeks, was meant to be that gig. And if you did well, suddenly you were at that club. I mean, I remember doing one club at a place called a Comedy and Magic Club at Hermosa, which is where Jay Leno still every Sunday night does his act there. Lily Tomlin was there when I was on. Like, it's a very, well-respected club. And I did an open mic Wednesday night, did 7 minutes, and the guy booked me for the whole weekend, and then he booked me for the next weekend, and then he booked me for the next weekend. So I ended up doing maybe 12, 13, 14 shows there over 3 weeks when my calendar had been empty.
All out of a free gig.
All out of a free gig.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to do that, to kind of have the payoff. And I guess for me, because I love stand-up comedy so much, like I've always been, a stand-up comedian who's done other things.
Yeah.
I still am excited about like the idea of going and performing at the Ice House in Pasadena, because that's a club that's been running for 50 years. Bob Newhart recorded 2 of his the Button Down Mind of Bob Newhart might have been recorded there. Like seminal comedy albums, like some of the biggest comedy albums of all time were in that room. So for someone like me, I mean, I sometimes feel like, I guess I don't feel like a big comic going there. I feel like a kid running onto the MCG at half time to play in the Little League, but you're still on the MCG with a full crowd of people on this hallowed ground where everybody else, played. And so there's a level of excitement in that for me anyway.
Yes.
So I just got a place there. I committed.
Mm-hmm.
I did the whole, instead of going back and forward, I said, right, I officially live in 2 countries. I have a place in Australia and I have a place in LA, and that is going to be the next 2 or 3 years. I will just go back and forth and, just play it by ear.
Yeah.
I don't have any grand ambitions with it. I just want to, enjoy myself and hopefully, like I said, if you go somewhere and you're funny, people go, oh yeah, you're funny, I'll use you again, and maybe I'll use you again.
You're at the point in your career though where you have, I guess, the benefit of I say whimsy, and I don't mean it with any disrespect. You have the ability to say, I want to try that.
Yeah.
Because of my success in Australia and through the UK and Edinburgh and those sorts of things, you earn enough to be able to say, I'm going to do that. I want to have a go, and I can afford to be able to, the next 2 weeks, I'm going to do an open mic spot and blah. I mean, that's a great position to be in, but certainly one that's paying off for you.
Yeah, but you're totally right. I mean, that's a really good insight, is that essentially, it costs me a shitload of money. It's ridiculous. But I see it as an investment in my future.
Yeah.
But B, I don't want to drive a really expensive car.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'd much rather go to America and do some gigs. I'd much rather be in a comedy room when Dave Chappelle pops down and does a gig on the same lineup, or, that sort of stuff happens all the time there. You're in rooms with people that, I went to a book signing, Patton Oswalt, who's one of my absolute favourite comedians in the world, and Justin Hamilton and I went down, it was my birthday, and he bought me Patton Oswalt's new book for my birthday, and he said he's doing a signing at Book Soup down the road, and we should go and listen to him talk.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, I'd really like to do that actually. And it's brilliant because there's only maybe 80 people in the room. He's talking very honestly about his craft, and I as someone who is not only a entertainment professional but someone who is a fan of entertainment, I love hearing how it works, or what other people's approaches to it are, or what excites them about it, or what they don't like.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
And so we're there, and I said to Justin, I'm going to ask a question, because I wanted to ask him a question about the style that his writing approach when it came to writing a book as opposed to writing for the stage. Because that's something I've done as well, and I wanted to know if he had a different approach. And anyway, I've gone to ask the question, and my legs started shaking, and my voice broke, and I was like, oh my God, I am nervous because I'm going to ask this question.
Yeah.
Anyway, he enjoyed the question, and he gave a much longer and more detailed and educational answer than I ever could have expected.
Yeah.
And then I said, all right, well, this is done, let's piss off. And Justin's like, no, he's doing the signing, we're here. Why don't we stick around and, line up, get your bloody book signed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't be a dickhead, no one knows.
Yeah.
It's not like, who cares, right?
Be a fan, go do it.
Just go and be a fan. So I've lined up in the line. And they've come along and they've put a post-it note with your name in so that he can write your name.
Yes.
So he's opened it up and he's looked at my name and he's about to write it down. He said, good question. And I said, oh, thanks, mate. I was really interested in it. And halfway through that sentence, he's just looked at me and gone, you're not Wil Anderson, are you? And like my legs nearly
Awesome.
collapsed underneath me, right?
That's awesome.
And he had been out to Melbourne at some stage and obviously seen me do something, and then he'd heard me on a podcast that I had done in the States that some mates of his do, and he was so nice and so friendly. He was like, hey, you should go and do this room and you should talk to this person. And every time something like that happens, the world becomes a little smaller.
Yeah.
You suddenly go, oh, hang on, this is not as unachievable as I think.
Yeah.
You know, particularly because my ambitions are not to be the next David Letterman. My ambitions are not to, you know, be some big star on American TV or anything like that, just as they've never really been that here. I like to, you know, do some work in the media on things that I find interesting.
Yep.
And then the rest of the time, you know, I hope that I'm well known enough that people will come and see me tell dick jokes in bars. You know, that's pretty much my life.
It's always about the dick.
Yeah.
Who would you list as the 5 most influential, if you can make it to 5, we'll limit it to 5 most influential entertainers, comedians, people on you that have helped you, whether directly or indirectly, get to where you are now?
So that's a really good question. And I hope I'm not going to miss people out when I say this, but let's have a crack at it.
We can have a big list.
Yeah. I'll see if I can do it in order.
Yep.
Billy Connolly.
Yep.
When I was 14, 15, I heard Billy Connolly. And before that I'd heard comedy, and I'd always liked comedy. I'd always liked how shocking and outrageous, and you know, I grew up on the same road as my dad was born on. It's named after my grandfather. He married the first woman he ever kissed. They're lovely people, but it's a very conservative country lifestyle that I grew up in, and I was never like that.
Yeah.
You know, I always loved to be, and to this day, it's still what informs me.
Yeah.
Is I am the kid making fun of the principal when he's making some boring speech in assembly.
Yep.
And I was that kid then, and I am that kid now. And sometimes it gets me in trouble. But you know, me sending tweets at the Logies is just me being that same kid who was making fun of, you know, the way the principal said inclement weather at, like, you know, at high school.
And made the Logies bearable, let me tell you that. As someone that was doing some very bizarre, on community radio, live broadcast, I was a bit player in it, but these guys that do a television podcast in Brisbane were broadcasting the Logies commentary style.
Yeah, right.
Hilarious. The information that we got out of the room via Twitter for the Logies while it was on, gold.
Well, the funny thing about that whole thing too was that, again, I genuinely never try to offend anybody. I just say the jokes that I would be saying to my mates, or say the jokes that I would be saying to other people. Yeah. And so the first year when I went to the Logies and did that, and it was the first time I'd ever been to the Logies, I just thought there was a lot of funny stuff. So I was like, well, it's an Aussie tradition, we all make fun of the Logies, I'll do it. And then the next day it was like so controversial and whatever. So the next year when I went, I was like, look, I'm not going to take my phone. Because I know what I'm like. I'll get a few drinks in and I want to do it again. So I didn't take my phone. And we were fine, and we were sitting in the front table, and I was like, good, I'm just going to have a relaxed night, I'm not going to do anything.
Can see me.
Yeah. And then Michael Pope, who's a great warm-up guy who does the warm-up for the Logies, and he's a very entertaining and fabulous guy. But he'd clearly been told that he had to come out and tell everyone in the room that they weren't allowed to use Twitter. And Dan Illick, who was at the same table as me, looked over at me and gone, they've brought in that rule because of you. And then he just handed me his phone. So I was like, all right, well, that seems like a challenge, right?
That's right.
So again, I got in more and more trouble. But anyway, the point being that I love that subversive comedy, you know, but in the country, all I really ever heard was like Cole Elliott and Rodney Rood and Kevin Bloody Wilson, which, you know, don't get me wrong, as a teenage kid, I thought were hilarious. But Billy Connolly was the first time I heard it and went, wow. Like, I find this intelligent and interesting, but it's still got all those things I love about being, I mean, he swears like a trooper, and I'm the same still to this day. Like, my show is swear heavy, and it's outrage heavy, and it's opinion heavy, and that's what Billy was, you know?